Welcome, once again, to a slower time. To a world shaped by stone and silence, where the past lingers beneath your feet, and even the grandest empires were held together, not just by emperors and armies, but by unseen hands. Tonight, we descend into a very different side of ancient Rome. An engineering marvel, a necessity, a place of ceaseless work and relentless stench. But have you ever imagined what it felt like to live that life? To wake before the sun and descend into the ground with nothing but a flickering torch? To spend your days scraping muck from curved stone walls in silence, and to return home soaked, tired, and still unknown? Not the Rome of polished marble or grand speeches, not the Rome of senators or Caesars, but the Rome of shadows and damp tunnels. The Rome beneath Rome, the place where the water ran, where refuse collected and where quiet laborers, anonymous and often forgotten, toiled in the dark to keep the eternal city alive. You may have heard of the Cloaca Maxima, the great sewer of Rome. Tonight we begin there. We'll explore the daily rhythms and quiet struggles of a Roman sewer worker. Then we'll rise to witness the downfall of a gilded emperor. We'll freeze time at Pompeii and then visit the perfumed chambers of a Roman matron. Let yourself drift through time. There is nothing to rush. No need to hold on to every word. Simply rest and let the past unfold. He wakes in the half-darkness, long before the Roman sun warms the tiled rooftops above. You're lying on a simple cot, rough wool blankets, scratchy against your skin. The air smells faintly of damp stone and smoke. No feast, but enough to line your stomach before the descent. Your tools are few, a short iron scraper, a woven basket, a tallow lamp for light. Your torch casts flickering shadows across the curved ceiling, arched stone darkened by years of use. Bits of broken tile, twisted reeds, and unrecognizable lumps pile into your basket. Occasionally you hear voices from grates above, snippets of conversation, unaware that you are beneath them, listening. That doesn't mean you don't smell of it. When you climb out at last, hours later, your tunic clings to your skin. People step aside as you pass in the street, wrinkling their noses but never meeting your eye. They don't hate you, but they don't see you either. You are necessary, but invisible. When it's full, you backtrack, slowly, carefully, and dump it out near the entrance. You wash with cold water, scrub at your arms, but the scent lingers. Your wages are small, just enough for food, rent, and the tools you must replace from time to time. If you're lucky, you'll never get sick from the tunnels. Many do. Some drown. Some disappear in cave-ins. But you've lasted this long. And tonight, like every night, you'll eat, lay down, and rest. Only to return tomorrow to the dark arteries beneath the marble skin of Rome. Because someone must do it. No one else will. You'll repeat this process 10, maybe 20 times. There are no breaks. No fresh air. The tunnel grows hotter the deeper you go, and the walls seem to breathe, expanding slightly, then pressing inward again. You can't stand fully upright here. You crouch or crawl. The floor is slippery. A thin film of oily water coats every surface, and you step carefully to avoid falling face first into the slurry. Your task today is to clear a blockage. Somewhere up the tunnel, a collapsed piece of masonry has caused debris to build. If left unchecked, it will flood the streets above, where merchants and senators walk in clean tunics, never thinking of what lies beneath them. You wrap a cloth around your face not to block the smell, because no cloth could, but to keep the worst of the dust and insects from your mouth. And then you go down. Outside, the city murmurs with early movement, the scrape of sandals, the creak of carts, but your world lies beneath all that. It yawns like a wound in the stone, dark, wet, breathing the city's refuse out in warm, heavy gusts. The Cloaca was once a stream, the Argremus, which flowed along Rome's Palatine Hill, bringing drinking water to the settlement there. Later, the Etruscans transformed it into a covered sewer. And finally, Roman engineers enclosed it into a subterranean artery. It carries more than water. Rotten fruit, animal entrails, human waste. Everything that Rome discards flows downward, always downward to you. You are a cloacarum operarius, a sewer worker of Rome. Your breakfast is simple, perhaps a crust of barley bread soaked in watered-down wine, maybe a handful of olives. The entrance to the Cloaca Maxima is wide enough for a man to stoop through. As you step into the tunnel, the light fades quickly. You work by feel. The scraper squeals against the stone. Sometimes you hear things. The distant splash of a rat or the rumble of water from higher up. You make your way home, a shared tenement room, perhaps with a few others like you. Rome is a city built over itself, layer upon layer. Underneath these world-famous ruins, something else lies buried too. Some say it was built by the Etruscans, a king of sorts, who united central Italy 2,500 years ago. Others say it was the Romans themselves, the Shevalf's descendants, who nursed the infant city. Either way, this vast network of tunnels served the first Romans well, but now we rise. From the tunnels of the Cloaca Maxima to the highest terraces of Roman power, let your thoughts drift upward, past the tenement rooftops and temple domes, into the heart of imperial Rome. It is the year 68 CE, the air in the Palatine. Hill Gardens is heavy with the scent of myrrh and laurel. Somewhere, a lyre strums lazily, echoing off the mosaic walls. This is Nero's Rome, a Rome of gold-leafed ceilings, perfumed fountains, shadows stretching behind every column. History, most of us know it only as legend, stories passed down generation to generation, like that of Romulus and Remus, suckled by a she-wolf, or of the 7 hills where their city stood, or how Augustus made it an empire. These tales are etched in stone, in marble, in myth. But beneath those great monuments, hidden from tourists and historians alike, lies another truth. The truth of the sewers. For this is the real history of Rome. Here in the tunnels of the Cloaca Maxima, far from the Colosseum and the Forum, the water rushes through ancient brickwork. He was born Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, but history remembers him as Nero, Claudius, Caesar Augustus, Germanicus, the last emperor of the Julio-Claudian line. The emperor who burned Rome, or so they said. The emperor who played music as his people died. The emperor who lost everything. But before he fell, Nero rose. At just 16 years old, he became emperor. Too young, too untested, too easily manipulated. For a time, he ruled well guided by the philosopher Seneca and the steady hand of Burrus. But power, like perfume, tends to cling and corrupt. Nero became obsessed with his image. He fancied himself not just a ruler, but an artist. He sang on stage, performed in plays, and forced senators and nobles to applaud. Weeping on cue, he raced chariots, composed poetry. He saw himself as divine, but Rome was less forgiving. Whispers grew. His own mother Agrippina had put him on the throne, manipulating her son into power. But as Nero grew bolder, he saw her not as a mother, but as a threat, and so he had her killed. First by collapsing her ceiling, then by sinking her pleasure barge. When both failed, he sent soldiers. She died with a single sentence: "Strike my womb first." From there, the blood didn't stop. Nero executed his wife, then his second wife. He murdered senators, poets, and generals. He blamed the Christians when a fire destroyed much of Rome, though many suspected he had started it to clear land for his golden palace. And what a palace it was. The Doma Soria Golden House stretched over 300 acres. Its rooms were lined with jewels. One had a ceiling that rotated like the heavens. Another sprayed rosewater mist on guests as they dined. While Rome starved, Nero built fantasies. But no fantasy lasts forever. In 68 CE, a governor named Galba declared himself emperor. The legions turned, the Senate turned. Even the Praetorian Guard, the emperor's own elite, deserted him. He hid in a villa outside the city. There, in panic, he begged anyone to help him end his life. In the end, he took his own dagger, guided by a servant's hand. His final words? "What an artist dies in me." He was 30 years old. His death plunged Rome into chaos, a year of 4 emperors, civil war, and uncertainty. But the memory of Nero lingered. To some, he was a monster. To others, a misunderstood visionary. To still others, a legend who never truly died. Rumors persisted for years that he would return. But tonight, he remains still. His golden house is gone, statues toppled, only fragments remain. and high above the sewers where our story began. The empire he ruled continues, unaware of the footsteps echoing through forgotten palaces. For more stories of the past, subscribe for more. Italy has seen more blood, sweat, and tears than any other country. Italy has been fought over, argued about, been loved and lived in, and step into a city where time stopped. A city caught mid-breath, where shadows were etched in ash. Then in 1748, while workers dug for treasure under King Charles III, they uncovered something strange. The story of Pompeii is one of love and loss. A love story between two people and a lost story between an entire city and a volcano. And food tells that story best. Like pizza, Neapolitan pizza, it's born under Vesuvius. Just like Pompeii. Its sauce is made with tomatoes from Pompeii's soil. Its dough is tossed in the shadow of the volcano. And its secret ingredient? Mozzarella di bufala campana. Buffalo mozzarella from the hills around Mount Vesuvius. They taste like sunshine and shadow, like fire and ice. Why? Because buffalo mozzarella is made from the milk of buffalo that graze in the shadow of Vesuvius. They eat the grass and drink the water that feeds this land. This mozzarella tastes like the history it comes from. Can you taste the story of Pompeii in this pizza? When I ate it, I could. Maybe it was the ashes. Maybe it was the sun setting over the Bay of Naples. All I know is the mozzarella tasted like the story it comes from. This is Italy. This is my Italian secret. Painted walls, mosaics, bones. Pompeii was sleeping, and it awoke intact. Rooms preserved as if the owners had just stepped outside. Loaves of bread still in ovens. Graffiti on walls, jokes, insults, flirtations. Celadus the Thracian makes the girls sigh. Restituta slept here with her teacher. Wall, I admire you for not falling down under the weight of so many words. There was beauty, and there was tragedy. Pompeii was not a perfect city. There were brothels and bars and debt collectors. There were enslaved people whose names we'll never know. There was wealth marble fountains, painted frescoes. And there was poverty one-room homes, broken shoes, empty pots. The ash didn't discriminate. It froze them all. And today, we wander through what remains, streets that go nowhere. Bodies turned to plaster molds. A silent theater still holding its last applause. Pompeii is a mirror. It shows us how fragile a day can be. How quickly the ordinary becomes sacred. Where life ended and was accidentally preserved. For nearly 2,000 years, Pompeii, the name drifts like smoke through the centuries, half myth, half memory. A Roman resort town nestled in the shadow of a mountain that no one thought could kill them. Mount Vesuvius was just part of the landscape. Green, quiet, looming. In the year 79 CE, it had slept for centuries. And then, with no warning, it woke. But before we get to the ash and fire, let's wander Pompeii as it once was. The morning of August 24th, you walk down the Via dell'Abbondanza. The paving stones are worn smooth by thousands of sandaled feet. Shops are open, bakers sell honey cakes. Wine shops hum with laughter. Barbers trim beards by open doorways. The air is warm. Still, too still. You hear dogs barking. A tremor underfoot. Small, barely noticed. And the first sound a low roar, like wind beneath the ground. And the sky darkens. People look up. A column of ash begins to rise, higher and higher, blooming like a black pine tree. Vesuvius is erupting. At first, it is surreal. Ash begins to fall like snow. People grab cloths to cover their faces. Some flee immediately. Others stay. Some watch from rooftops, mesmerized. Then comes the hail of pumice. Smashes tiles, shatters glass, crushes skulls. The air is thick, hard to breathe. Visibility drops to nothing. Hours pass. Then, in the dark of the early morning, comes the pyroclastic surge. A wall of ash, gas, and rock racing down the mountainside, hotter than flame, faster than a galloping horse. It sweeps through Pompeii in moments. No one escapes it. People are frozen in their final gestures. It's a woman curled around her child, a man clutching a doorframe, a dog chained near a step. each hollow left behind in the ash. Italy is family. That's why this series is called My Italian Secret. Today I'm going to share with you a secret my family has kept for 2,000 years. Now, let the noise fade. Leave behind the palaces and politics. Centuries passed. Pompeii was buried. Forgotten its name whispered, but its location lost. But tonight, it is quiet. The mountain sleeps again. The city rests in ash and memory. Today, we're going to play a little game called What Would You Do? Where, oh, look, a guard dog. Hi there, welcome to my channel. Today we are looking at what it would be like to be a woman in ancient Rome. In the modern era, there is a vast difference between men's and women's lives in ancient Rome. Those differences were more about class than gender. Women's lives were defined by where they were born into, which determines things like education, marriage prospects, property rights. Here the marble is polished, the air is still and perfumed, and woven curtains sway slightly with the breeze from the garden courtyard. The daily life of a Roman matron was heavily influenced by Stoicism, an influential philosophy during that time that emphasized living a virtuous life in accordance with nature and fulfilling one's duty. While male Stoics focused on politics and philosophy, female Stoics contributed to the community through domestic duties and raising the next generation. For a Roman woman, marriage was not only about love and companionship, but also about fulfilling her role in society as a wife and mother. Despite these limitations, Roman women did have some opportunities to participate in public life and make contributions to society through religion and the arts. If you want to explore further, there are links in the description below to videos on other kinds of Roman women, including wives of commoners, prostitutes, and the one and only Livia Drusilla. She was expected to bear children, manage the household, and maintain the family's reputation. I've never done anything like this before, so let me know what you think. I'll see you next time. Roman culture places great importance on maintaining a positive public image. Women were often praised for their ability to enhance their husband's honor and prestige through their behavior and choices. This is not the world of sewer workers, nor charioteers, nor gladiators. However, these activities were strictly regulated and women were expected to be accompanied by a male relative. Public spaces were considered inappropriate for women alone, and they were generally prohibited from engaging in commerce or owning property in their own name. Women also played an important role in religious life in ancient Rome. They could serve as priestesses and were expected to participate in festivals and rituals. They also had their own cults and shrines, such as the goddess Diana, to whom young women could dedicate themselves. This is the world of the Roman matrona, woman of wealth, of tradition, of duty. Roman literature reflects a strong emphasis on female virtue, piety, and obedience. Roman women were also expected to be skilled in the arts of beauty and fashion, and they used cosmetics, jewelry, and fine clothing to enhance their appearance. However, these items were also symbols of their subservient status, and were often controlled or provided by their male relatives. You are her. The sun has just begun to rise over the tiled rooftops of Rome. A servant draws open the shutters. Light filters in through patterned screens. You do not rise at once. A slave girl combs your hair slow, careful motions with an ivory comb passed down for generations. Your husband has already gone to the forum, or perhaps the baths. You will not see him until midday. Instead, your day begins with the household. You oversee the kitchen, a bustling world of clanging pots, roasted dormice, honey cakes, and imported spices. Everything must be in order before the midday meal. Even if you do not cook, the success of the feast reflects on you. You are expected to be modest, but also beautiful. Wise, but silent in public. Your stola is carefully draped, dyed with expensive saffron, edged in purple. Your hair is pinned high in elaborate curls, with gold threads woven through. Jewelry is understated but never absent. Earrings of amber, small ring bearing the family seal. You walk through your atrium, where household gods watch silently from their niche. You pause to offer a pinch of incense. Everything in your home reflects your virtue pudictia, your dignity, restraint, and devotion to Roman values. Later, you meet with other women in the peristyle garden. There is gossip, yes, but also politics whispered behind closed doors, marriages arranged, dowries negotiated, all through polite conversation over dates and diluted wine. Perhaps you write letters on wax tablets, or guide your daughters through the poetry of Ovid, though always with caution, lest it stir unladylike thoughts. You may also attend a public ceremony, though from behind a veil. At the theater, you are seen, but never loud. At the market, your slave handles the bartering. Speak Latin, of course, but perhaps also Greek learned in youth, practiced in recitation. The language of philosophers and court poets. By evening, your husband returns. You recline on a couch beside him, not quite equal, but not invisible. Guests arrive. A dinner is served as 7 courses if the house can afford it. Shellfish garum sauce, honey roasted figs. You smile. You offer witty remarks, but your mind is always balancing the expectations of your station.
At night,
Once the guests have gone and the lamps are extinguished, you are finally alone. You remove the pins from your hair. The curls fall slowly. You wash your face with rose water. Servant brings a fresh linen robe, and then silence. The city outside begins to still. And in your room where the walls are painted with fading mythological scenes, you close your eyes. You have done your duty, seen and unseen. Tomorrow will begin again, as it always does in the life of a Roman matron. And how much say they had in their own lives. Life as a Roman lady was completely different, whether she was born a slave, a free woman in the lower classes, or the daughter of a senator. Today, we're looking at the life of a wealthy free woman, the so-called Roman matrons, who were married into elite families. Now, I'm going to be honest here. It might feel weird to talk about the lives of rich ladies in ancient Rome, especially because most of our examples come from the writings of Pliny the Younger, who was a very nice guy. So he tends to paint his wife and mother-in-law in a very positive light, even though they were likely quite spoiled and kind of needy. That being said, this is all we have to go on. So let's see what we can piece together about the life of a Roman matron. Now we rise, one last time, from the buried city of Pompeii to the upper floors of a Roman villa bathed in soft morning light. Let's break that down a bit. Outside of the home, a Roman woman could participate in religious ceremonies, visit the baths, and attend theatrical performances. While Roman women could be educated, their literary accomplishments were often viewed with suspicion, as they were seen as better suited to domestic pursuits. Overall, the life of a Roman woman was highly regulated and restricted, and they were expected to conform to strict standards of behavior and appearance. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this experiment in first-person narration. And so ends our journey through the underworld and upperworld of ancient Rome, from the sewer tunnels where the city's waste ran, bringing with it the stench of urine and decay. We have walked the Via Sacra, a sacred way where emperors rode in triumph and defeat. We have stood on the bank of the Tiber, the river that gave the city its name, where once the Etruscans made their homes. We have seen the Colosseum in all its glory, where gladiators fought to the death, and Christians were torn to pieces by wild beasts. We have visited the Pantheon, the temple of all the gods, where emperors prayed for divine favor. And we have wandered through the Forum of Trajan, the greatest emperor of them all, where his column, the largest ever erected, commemorates his victories. To the golden halls where emperors lost their minds, to the frozen moment of Pompey's last breath preserved in marble and ash. As the sun sets over the Palatine Hill, we leave you with one final image, the ruins of the Appian Way, the road that leads to the sea. Until then, sleep now, if you haven't already. Close your eyes and imagine yourself walking along the Appian Way, the road that leads to the sea. Hear the sandals on your feet, feel the sun on your skin, smell the roses in your hair. Taste the sweet wine on your lips, and see the eagles on the shields of the legions marching before you into the unknown. Sleep now. The past is patient, and there is always more to discover tomorrow. Goodbye. It was here that the legions marched out of the city, shields emblazoned with the Roman eagle, to conquer the known world. And it is here that we must leave you. Past is patient, and there is always more to discover tomorrow. And finally into the soft and silent life behind patrician curtains. We have seen the Forum, the beating heart of the empire, where orators swayed the crowds and senators plotted in the shadows. But now it is time to say goodbye, so join us next time as we continue our journey through the ancient world.